Hey everyone, Angelo here, Hollywood filmmaker, greatest screenwriter in the history of the world, recovering hobo. I'm in West LA as Hurricane Hillary is arriving. We're expecting 2.5 inches of rain. That's a huge amount of rain. Like, even, where I'm from in Virginia, like a big storm would be like an inch of rain. And I don't know how well prepared the city is for it as far as the power grid, the infrastructure. It's horrible. It is torture for homeless people to go through. I can't believe like people are going to have to live through that, and people will die. I'm sure because of it, because of our neglect and our uh, deference to property owners and the property class. I swear, the older I get, the more I see, the more in solidarity I get with the oppressed, the poor, the working class. With uh, uh, people who have people who are victims of racism, with uh, anyways, people who've been victims of empire. Just oh my goodness, I can't. And I say this having been homeless for 2.5 years myself. Now I didn't sleep on the street. I slept in my car. So actually, I had a shelter because a car is kind of like a house on wheels. But man, I just cannot imagine like the rain beating down on you hour after hour. That is torture. We have to get our priorities straight and decommodify housing. Nothing I'd love to see more than that. And that gets me to my next topic: the property manager of the building I live with, who's abusive, who is petty, vain, cruel, and probably a lot of other things that I can just kind of tell glean from how she's treated me, to the kind of possessiveness over me, and the weirdly like treating me like I'm a specimen in a zoo, uh, and then the total lack of acknowledgement of her responsibility for it, the denial of her own behavior. Uh, so I want to speak softly because she's actually outside my door. I don't really care if she hears me saying she's abusive. I pretty much all but told that straight to her face. Like, I was very much, excuse me, like holding her to account, like being straight up. And I had to be like excessively polite and deferential because she was like turning her face like Mussolini when I said, like, you were cruel, you were disrespectful to me, interrupting. She was like, oh, fine, everything I do is wrong, like I'm just horrible, right? That's a classic abuser thing that abusers do. I've been around abusers who do that. If I even criticize them, their views on something or how they've treated me or others, they will turn it into, oh, so you just hate me, you want me to suffer the worst fate imaginable, right? So in other words, you're victimizing me by asserting your own healthy boundaries. And I've already talked about it a few times. I'll link to a video where I discuss what she did. Basically, just treating me like an insect, kind of like an object. Saying, one morning last week, I was making breakfast around 4:30 in the morning. She came up to me and said, "Why is your hair wet?" And she was interrupting me too. I was listening to a video, and I said, because I was showering. And she said, "But your hair was wet last night." I said, "Because I was sweating." And it devolved from there. She asked a bunch of questions like, "Why is that fly swatter here? I got all the flies out." Oh my goodness. I killed a fly earlier that morning because there were flies in the apartment. She kept badgering me about other stuff, wouldn't leave me alone when I was trying to eat. And then it just turned into her yelling at me, like demanding to know, because she saw a fly. Then she took my fly swatter and killed it across the living room. And then kept demanding to know if I saw the fly. I said I didn't. And she kept yelling, "How do you not see the fly? It's right there. How do you not see it?" Like interrupting me, treating me like a possession. And then when I pointed out to her how rude that was, like 2 days later, she was very angry and like incensed, and basically, so I don't know what to do. Like, okay, like I'm just making conversation. Like, you're very, oh, she got very possessive. Like, and this is where I get the crypto-fascist, or maybe not so crypto, vibes of the rigid hierarchical structure of society she believes in. And she's Hungarian for what it's worth, so a country that has in large part embraced fascism. And I say that, you know, while I can also say that here in America, much of the country is embracing fascism, and it's up to us to sort of, cleanse ourselves of it, like keep that out of our own ideas and be vigilant against it, our own assumptions and biases. But also in the country of my ancestors, Greece, and my mom, where they embrace fascism a lot too, and white supremacy. And tied up into all that is the rigidity of, people who basically deem above you that you have to acknowledge and respect. Embedded into all that is basically a kind of projection and narcissism of the older generation to the young, and especially the parents to children, of that you're a projection into the world of me. I want to possess you. This narcissistic idea that you may not be certain things. You may not be gay. You must conform to gender norms. You may not date outside the race. All this stuff. Now I know she would say, "Oh no, that's not the dating outside the race thing, because for personal reasons." And to that I say, yeah, that just that doesn't make anyone anti-racist or anti-fascist. It makes them a coward. Because up close, you want the benefits of a racially integrated society, but when you don't have to face the person, or when you just want to be disrespectful to someone who, I guess she's got something she's fascinated by or objectifies about, my skin color, and I'm white, but because I'm, kind of dark looking, people think I'm whatever it is they don't like, basically. And she kind of intruded into that when shortly after I moved in, and she said, now with a name like Angela, are you Latino or Italian? I said, neither, I'm Greek. And she said, oh, I thought, based on your name and how you look, you're one of those two. And I wasn't really like offended by that at all, but I'm like, we should elevate ourselves above that to where it's fine, like, to be curious about someone, but I'm just like, there's also the aspect of what standard do you want to hold yourself to. I personally don't like, there's no need to ask that of someone, because it's almost like saying, oh, you're not really like white, or you're not really American. What are, like, you're some other thing, right? You're not really like belonging here. You're something else. It's like an othering, like, oh, you look strange and different. What are you? It's this kind of, paternalized racism of like, oh, this thing is not normal, and our definition of normal is what we've, embedded into ourselves, so that the specter of this thing of, whiteness is normal. And again, I say that I'm white, but like, I'm not white enough for some people. And it becomes like a thing to like objectify, but not to talk with like hatred about, but just like this sort of this condescending view on them. And I'm sure that played into how she possesses me and others, because I'm sure she's done it to other people too. And the complete denial when I said what you did was intrusive, it was disturbing, it was hurtful. I told her straight up like what it was, and she was like this. And then she's like, oh, fine, I'm sorry for making conversation. I said, I accept your apology. She said I was being sarcastic. I'm like, okay, that shows how cruel and abusive she is. So anyways, point is, I've gone into that long enough. But I do want to mention again the fascist vibes. The idea that, like, she was very angry because she said, you don't say hello, how are you, when you see me and stuff. In my culture, I swear to you, she was like almost shaking. She was like, that is very rude. And I kept saying, well, I'm used to that. She's like, not good enough. And I said, I dealt with a girl who, wanted me to say hi to her too, the terrorist in my old apartment. I didn't tell my roommate now that she sexually harassed me and terrorized us, but I said she took it too far. She's like, that's not an excuse. I said, I was homeless for years. I'm used to dealing with people a certain way. She's like, that sort of explains it. And again, it's like almost like trying to uncover what species of insect you are. Like, why does this creature not behave a certain way? Oh, it was homeless. Like, I see that, and just because she not may not be espousing full blown fascism here, doesn't mean she's not a fascist and doesn't adhere and is inspired by fascism. And that's why I say we all have to be vigilant about that worldview creeping in, being around us, because it's embedded into everything, especially in America. So much the way our neighborhoods are arranged, where the highways run through, why they destroyed black and brown neighborhoods and displaced people to build highways. How many Native Americans were just straight up killed and put on it, made to live in squalor. Those who are still around and survived, just horrible. Anyway, so I found another place. It seems great. I'm planning on moving in a few days. I wonder if this hurricane will put any change in those plans with if it destroys the apartment I'm planning on moving to, but seems like a real cool guy I'm gonna live with. Don't want to say more than that, but seems like we gel, we get along well. Cool place, good location, close to my job, close to the metro, all that stuff. So that's cool. And also it would be a month-to-month lease. I'm happy with that too, because again, I just hate the idea, like, you gotta subscribe to, it's like a subscription service for your housing. Oh, you gotta lock yourself in to your plan. Again, we gotta decommodify housing so people like this don't get the opportunity to torture people like me. And it's such a, I see too, such a disrespect for herself, the way she like demands something of me. But it's like, unless you can really back up what you're saying, like back up meaning it's worth everything to you, it's like that serious, like all you're trying to do is inflict pain on someone to make them want to stop. And it's like, man, you're lucky. It's a good thing I have the integrity and respect to know I don't even engage in that, like trying to make you be something that I want you to be, and inflicting emotional distress and pain and making things difficult for you if you don't do that. Because to me, like, unless it's worth, like, it's seriously that important where it's like you have to defend your life over it, you've given up all your self-respect by saying, oh, no, I don't actually have anything I'm willing to, I don't actually have the courage to, put myself, to risk myself, or like say this is actually important enough for me to argue over. It's just, I want you to be afraid of me, but it's an empty threat. I just want you to feel pain. And so it's really a way of saying, I want to validate myself through you. And by the way, abusers are so fucking stupid. Like, why is it abusers cannot understand they're abusive? You can say they're abusive, you can explain it, lay out what the experts say about abuse. And the one thing, like she was saying, how I don't say hello to her and stuff, that's something I saw an abuser, a guy, Austin James, who says he's a recovered abuser. He's since died, apparently. But he would make YouTube videos and wrote a book saying he was an emotional abuser for 30 years, and he recovered, and he mentors people on how to recover from their own emotionally abusive behavior. And he said one of the things emotional abusers do is set high expectations for people, or just expectations that they never verbalize. And when you don't live up to them, even if it's not in the moment, maybe days later, you let them know about it and inflict pain on them over it. And he said he was a master at that. And I'm like, oh damn, like I got to get up to speed on this stuff, because that's what she's doing exactly. And then there's the pathetic denial, and like, how creepy is the pathetic sense that she creates intimacy by abusing people and shattering their boundaries and trust. And then it was like she was demanding to know, why can't I just make conversation with you? It's like, whoa, slow the fuck down, you fucking pig. You're not in any kind of relationship with me. Like, why can't we talk? Why can't I just make conversation with you? That's why I'm like, I wouldn't even engage that. I'm just like, she was trying to say I was just making conversation. I said, well, I know you don't know what you were doing was wrong, but the impact of what you say matters. And she tried bringing up how she works with professionals or something. I don't know. I don't see anything professional about her. She wears a nightgown all the time. But she works with professionals in some field, and they don't act like me, like they say hello, how are you and stuff. The older women, you always have to do that, whatever. It's like that's a good excuse for abusing, but and not reflecting on your own conduct. But she brought that up, so I said how, yeah, past jobs where they train us on harassment, they say it's not about what you intend, it's the impact of what you say that matters. And I told her straight up, what you said was hurtful. It was distracting to me. It was disturbing. You were interrupting my time. And when I'm out in a common area, that's not an invitation for you to comment on my looks or my vision or anything else. She was criticizing me because I didn't see the fly. How can you not see the fly? I said I'm nearsighted. And she's like, what's that mean? I said, I mean, my distance vision isn't good. And she said, well, you shouldn't drive a car then. I'm like, my bike was right next to her when she did that. But that's, to her, is like it's like just pathetic. So that's why I'm like, oh, I'm not even interested in proving her wrong, because I'm not after her approval. That's how an abuser draws you in. They want you to almost get into like a reactive type of abuse by demanding they be certain things. I'm like, I have no demands of you. Fuck off. And anyways, so that's where I'm at now. Trying to do a bunch of writing, and I realized too, her life is like empty. And it's not even me trying to compare myself to her. I'm just observing. Like, she doesn't get up early, doesn't exercise, doesn't eat well. Man, she does not eat well. And doesn't appear to have like interests that are like uplifting, fulfilling. Definitely doesn't appear to like keep up with the world and like how you should treat people and how we don't make fun. You know, a civilized society does not make fun of perceived disabilities. Nearsightedness is one, and we don't think of it like that because it's a very relatively minor thing in large part. And also the accommodation for it is very simple: glasses or contacts, or for some people, corrective surgery. But also, like when I first came over, I misread the address. It was on the other side of the street, and she said, "Oh, dyslexic much?" I'm like, well, like, yeah, that's the fascist element too, of like, oh, what's this thing with a disability? It's not like, you know, like the fascist conception of innate truths is like certain people are superior and certain people are inferior, and people with disabilities, I don't happen to, it doesn't matter whether I have dyslexia or not. It's like making fun of that is like saying, oh, I think people with disabilities are comical to me, or less than, are here to be objects of my entertainment and derision. So yeah, that tells you where she's at. Also, how fucking stupid is someone who doesn't know why hair is wet? I'm like, it's not even worth addressing. Like with her, like, you have no business. I just said, like, you have no business commenting on my appearance. But like, that's all I could do is just be firm. And it wasn't even about anything I said. It was just conducting myself with integrity while I did it. It's like, oh, I had to realize on some level, oh, all my attempts to goad Angelo into abusing me back are not effective. So there's no intimacy for her to gain, because that's how abusers feel intimacy, is they inflict pain and then they want to make up or break up, you know, fight and then sort of make up. And that's their way of both shattering intimacy and their own way of creating it in an attempt to gain mastery of their own trauma. So fuck off, fascists. And it made me real, and just how much like the political is personal. Like people, you know, bring their worldviews into their personal lives too, as far as also the kind of, I get the sense of, you know, misogyny in our culture, and that has to do, and I'm saying that even though she's a woman, I'm a man, but the idea almost like that men have certain roles, women have certain roles, they are not to cross those lines. And embedded in that too is like a disdain for men who display any type of perceived femininity or whatever. And I just got nothing specific, but I just got that sense that she was like, yeah, she buys into those rigid roles. The men do this, the women do this, or whatever. I mean, she basically straight up told me, you're a younger man, you should do this, greet an older woman like this. And it's like, oh, no consideration of like me as a human or my time or whether she should conduct herself with respect. Because again, in the fascist conception of world, there are certain innate truths, and those are just a given, and they color everything. And it just makes me realize even more strongly how urgent it is to sort of decolonialize our own minds and rid ourselves of these wicked, stupid ideas, and the need for racial justice, for solidarity with oppressed black and brown people, and acknowledgement and try and correct the systemic racism in the country, and the problem, and all these things are intertwined, tied up. But the hyper commodified housing, the cruelty towards poor people, the way social programs are so starved of funds, and it's so humiliating and difficult for people to try and get help from social programs. And the way the Republicans and a lot of the Democrats, who are just totally in lockstep with them, want to make it harder. Like, oh, you have to work to be on Medicare or Medicaid, you have to work to be on welfare. It's like, well, you just hate Americans. You just want them to starve if they don't work some shit job they can barely afford to do, that many times is bad for their health, where their employers can abuse them. You revere the property class landlords, and I can speak now to, she's not a landlord, property manager, but how they can get away with stuff like this. My first landlord, don't forget, Baptist pastor William Wagner in Falls Church, Virginia, who sexually harassed me, and also I very much, I'm sure, like, rigidly conservative, white supremacist, in what's inspired him. In his conception of the world was very much that sort of like, oh, I'm not even sure he would have said he's not racist, but just the idea that, like, it doesn't matter what you think about policies in the world or how our society is rearranged, as long as you're a good person. Like, you can sort of divorce your ugly views of the world from yourself, from your own, like, who you are as a person. It's not a window into who you are. And I say that because I'm sure he bought into just a broadly white supremacist conception of the world, is like, all the derogatory views about black and brown people, and basically anyone not like him, because he didn't even want to be like him. He was obviously hiding some horrible secret, some compulsion about his sexuality and sexual identity. And it just makes me realize how much more urgently we have to rid ourselves of, colonialism, racism, fascism, capitalism. We need an equitable, just society. We need to absolutely uphold LGBTQ rights, trans rights all the way. Trans rights are human rights, like all that stuff. And if that sounds goofy and lofty, good. I want it to, because I want it to sort of put in your mind a little bit of discomfort. Like, why is Angelo talking like that? He's just dealt with some abusive Hungarian fascist. But so much, like, the world, it, like, becomes this inflection point on these certain moments, and like how it's affecting my life and the life of people I know, my friends who struggle to survive here and wonder, like, should I stay in LA? It's so expensive. Should I move somewhere else? It's like, it's disrupting our lives just to pay dividends to a small property class of mostly white men. And so many other people who will never even be in that class prop them up and want to suck their teats and have reverence for them, because they believe that that's the just order of the world, is the haves and the have-nots. And it goes much deeper than that. And you can go back hundreds of years and find the views that they're inspired by and that support them. It's nothing new when they say, derogatory views about people in the inner city or whatever. Like, these are about gay people, about whoever. These are the ignorant, partly superstitions, but prejudices that people have passed down for generations. And they're not like the new edgy counterculture by saying that stuff. No, they're ignorant pigs. So worker solidarity, tenants' rights, again, workers' rights. We've got so many people either on strike or threatening to go on strike. More power to them. And it just makes me realize more than ever how we need to make the political personal and create more solidarity with each other, stronger bonds with each other, networks of aid for each other. Police brutality, that's another one I got to get in there. But people who don't believe in, like, scientific inquiry, science education, people who basically look down on the arts as well. It's a lot of people hate people they consider the elites, which is artists, um, people with a progressive bent who don't look and live the way they do. And I think we should just affirm those people even more, and be willing to acknowledge those parts of ourselves even more, the parts of ourselves that don't comport to this rigid hierarchy that so many of us have been taught to uphold. And I see that in the rollerblading groups that I'm in, that I've been taking part in, and the bike riding groups. Like, oh, this is nothing that corporate America offers, or the ideas that I was steeped in conservative Christianity offers, which is this wonderful, like, joyous activity, this solidarity, this creating of bonds and friendship between people that is just people powered, both in our vehicles, which is just wheels on our feet, or biking as well, or skateboarding, or whatever. They're like the one wheels now, and unicycles, and other types of like fun, recreational ways of getting around. It's also exercise. I'll include surfers in that too, like the people powered activities that create bonds that don't stratify us in the ways that, like, at your job, you tend to be around people who are doing the same thing you are in your own class, in your own, or similar socioeconomic group. And it just kind of cuts between all classes. Now, granted, there's barriers to that too. You got to have time to be able to rollerblade or bike. You got to have the money to get those things, even though you can get them relatively cheap. But I know a time when I could not get any of those things, no matter how cheap they were, because it was just not feasible for me. And I was homeless. And having a bike when I was homeless, it was like, well, have a bike or have a car. I was not going to have both. Yeah, I could have, I guess, mounted it on the car, but that also could have gotten stolen, for one thing. And it would have been another expense. How our lives are, we're so disintegrated and isolated by car infrastructure, by these greedy ass car companies who overcharge us for these over-engineered pieces of junk, and they don't make us safer. They don't really get us around quicker than public transportation network could in denser neighborhoods, more socially connected neighborhoods. They actually help foster the derisive views people have. Like, well, basically they help foster the white flight from the city centers, the white people who move out to the suburbs, don't want to pay taxes in the city, and they actually bilk the inner cities for their taxes, because the tax base is so much more dense, because it's so much more heavily populated in cities where they don't spend as much on services. Because think about it, like, you don't have to run utilities out to an apartment building the way you would single family homes, where each home is, you got to run out utility lines and power and water, whereas an apartment, it's just so much easier. Like, you're so much more compact. It saves money, less heating bills, energy bills, trash pickup is all in one place for everybody there. All kinds of factors like that they never told us about. And the way our society's been stratified, where, like, people in the suburbs can think, oh, this is just normal, this is how people live. Those people in the inner cities, in the urban centers, something's wrong with them. They're different. They didn't work hard enough for this, for your stupid, pathetic dream where you're walled off from all your neighbors, and you drive oversized trucks, and you spend tons of money on gas, and your idea of entertainment is sitting at home and watching TV, and it's not being connected to others. And you have these artificial parks, your lawns, where you don't share common spaces with others. You don't get to see the way other people live, and when you do, a lot of you just freak the hell out. So anyways, I'm getting hot and sweaty. Looking forward to the move. It's an exciting and strange and surreal time for me. Like, so much is changing, even this hurricane. Like, we haven't had a hurricane here in like 86 years. But, be good, everybody. Be righteous. It shouldn't be this hard to move even. I'm lucky. Like, I've had a good amount of savings, and I have a decent paying job, and low expenses, basically, because I don't have a car, and I don't have kids, and don't have any like major medical problems, other than of course her problem is my roommate's problem with my eyesight. But making good connections with people, even being in the skate shop is awesome. Oh, I'll show, by the way, I got this too. Backpack for my rollerblades, because it's such a hassle to try and carry them on my bike. So I can actually pack them in here. I'll just show one of the skates. How I do it. My beautiful rollerblades. Make sure I... Oh, that's a little loose. I gotta tighten that nut. That bolt, or whatever. But how do I do this again? Oh yeah. So put them in like this. Jeez, it's freaking hot. This thick black shirt isn't helping. So like this. See? The blade, and then I would put the other one in here. I've already tested this, and just throw it on my back. So this is great. It's a Razor's bag. It's $89. Nice padding. That's why I got this one. So it's comfortable. It's slung well on my back, as opposed to other ones I tried out at the skate shop that just weren't as comfortable on my back. I may as well just leave this in here because I'm gonna have to put it on my back later. But even being at the skate shop, you know, it was a great experience talking to the guy who works there and this other lady who was in there shopping. So that to me is more important than ever, those kinds of connections. So let me know what you think, everybody. Create better bonds with each other. Let's create, like, you know, connections that cut across all classes. And I mean, we're certainly probably not going to have any ultra wealthy people here, which we don't need them. And they would never go for this kind of talk. Otherwise, they wouldn't be ultra wealthy. They would give up their wealth. So thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. Let's see what happens.